It's 52 years since the society began, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what happened early on in the society's history, just to give you a flavour of how it all began and what it's like. And at the end, I've got some comments from two very long-standing members. The first slide is the letter that Michael Broom wrote, which set the whole thing off. It was published in a London dealer's newsletter, and he invited people to get in touch with him because he was feeling a bit lonely as a collector of Islamic coins. When he sent out the first newsletter, which was a month later, he'd already been approached by 12 people and had got 9 members, and suggested various titles for the organization. And in the next newsletter, it was decided on the basis that nobody objected to it, that the society be called the Oriental Numismatic Society, and the abbreviation ONS was born at the same moment. Shortly after, he recruited somebody to be treasurer and floated the idea that there should be an editorial panel to produce information sheets on different aspects of Oriental coins. And in the next one, he invited people to submit ideas for a logo for the society, and he also appointed the first people to the editorial board. Unfortunately, most of them are no longer with us, but they're all names that I think are readily recognisable, particularly Nick Rhodes, our former Secretary General, and Frank Turk, who was one of the first people working on Chinese coins that I met. The 3 designs were submitted, and the one that we use today was one of them, and that's the one that people voted for. The middle one was designed by my brother, and I'm not sure who designed the first one. But I think it was the right decision. It has a nice simplicity to it. He also put into that newsletter a suggestion as to what he thought the society was, and he was very keen to keep the organisation to a minimum. So organised activities should be kept to a minimum, because I think he didn't want to burden anybody with the responsibility of organising it, and that membership should be open to anyone, which I think is a good principle that we still follow. The membership grew very quickly. There's a list of the first 50 members, and I just learned from Pankaj that the 5th member is still alive. A lot of these people, unfortunately, are no longer with us. We heard from Howard yesterday. Howard, number 26, is still with us and going strong, and Bob Senior, number 21. I'm sure there are others that I'm not. It's Bill Barrett at number 40. I met with him a few days ago. So it's the society grew really quickly, and so by the end of 74, so within 4 years, we'd already had 500 members. And although 1850 people have joined by 2005, there's a lot of people leaving because they changed their minds or they died, and that sort of 500 figure has remained fairly constant throughout. So, at the moment we have somewhere between 500 and 600 members. And we're always keen for it to grow, but that's down to people whether they want to join. The first newsletters Michael Broom wrote himself, but in 1976 he invited Michael Michener to take over running the newsletter. And he did so for several years. And then in 1985, Stan took over. And as we all know, Stan continued to edit our newsletter for 30 years. And in 2006, Council decided that the newsletter becomes such an important publication that we would change its name to the Journal to reflect its status. And later this year, we published number 250, and the proceedings of this conference will be published in that. And alongside that, in the newsletter, there were numismatic bibliographies and reviews. In fact, I realized that I wrote the first review in the newsletter a year before I became a member. And the editorial board brought about the issuance of occasional papers and information sheets. And later on, those became supplements to the journal. Michael continued to be Secretary General until he died, and his desire for there being no organisation and keeping everything informal left us in a bit of a fix. So we the group of us got together and we decided that Nick Rhodes should be the next Secretary General, and he oversaw the creation of a new constitution, and a council was elected. And since then, council has run the society. And outside of the UK, Michael Broom started to appoint people as regional secretaries. So we had Pat Hogan was the first one in America, then Gorta in Europe, and we now have 7 regional secretaries, and on council there are 7 officers and 4 other members. Although Michael was not that keen on having things organised, there was a demand for meetings, and the first meeting took place at the home of my brother, Steve. And in the same year, we had meetings at Nick Rhodes's house and Dr. Chandaria's. And from then onwards, meetings continued to take place. And the one I organised in '75 is where I first met John Dale, and have appreciated his friendship ever since. And in '77, we decided to move into hotel rooms because the meetings were getting bigger. And then in '82, meetings started taking place at the British Museum, first of all in the conservation section, and then in '91, from '91 in the coins and medals department. And now we also hold meetings in the Ashmolean Museum. And from 1978, meetings also started taking place in the other section. But one of the sort of key people in the society over the last decades has been Stan, both as Deputy Secretary General since we started having a council, but also as our editor. And these are a few of his comments on the society. So remembering how he first heard about it, and met people from the society, or who knew about the society in a market in Coin Market in West London, which was underneath the arches. Howard remembers it well. I think I first met him there, and from there on, he learnt about the society and joined it, and got in touch with Michael Broom. And as he says, and I haven't left yet. And he said that his main pleasure in the society is getting together with people, and meeting up with them, both outside of meetings, but also in meetings. And he particularly remembers friends who are no longer with us. And he mentions Ken Wiggins, who was the UK secretary for a long time, Nick Rhodes, our former Secretary General, and Tony Webdale, who was also heavily involved in organising the UK section and died very young, rather sadly. And one of the things that has changed, that Stan draws attention to, is that when we started, we used to have lists of members distributed throughout the membership. But a few years ago, I think the last one we did was in 2005, it became very clear that there was legislation coming that would make it difficult for us to distribute such information. And also people were quite concerned about the risk of theft if the list got out of hands, and one member did have a very nasty experience of having his collection stolen. So we decided to stop doing that. So now all the information is held by the regional secretaries. And I think Stan expresses in his last sentence that we're all getting older. I've been in the society now for 50 years, and so has Stan. And we're always keen to welcome young people, but coin collecting is an expensive hobby, so it tends to be people who are a little older that do it. But we see quite a lot of students joining us, and I feel very positive about where the society is going and its future. The other person who has given us some comments is Michael Mitchener, who was also a very long-standing member and editor of the newsletter. And I think everybody who works on Oriental coins knows his name. His books are a vital tool for anybody working in this area. His importance has been recognised by the Royal Numismatic Society, who made him an honorary fellow. And that is a very rare distinction from that society, normally kept for members of the royal family and things like that. Anyway, he also met the society via the arches under Charing Cross Station, and got to know various members of the society in that way, and he joined early on, and got to know all the same group of people that Stan and I got to know at that time. This is his memory of a meeting of the society in London, when we had a lot of people coming in from abroad, and P.L. Gupta, as he says, the doyen of Indian numismatics, absolutely. And he was in London briefly, and through that he got to know lots of people. And I'll finish with his statement, which I think sums it up. Communication and ability to share with friends our common interests across the broad field of numismatics has always been a fundamental strength of the society. And I think that continues to be the keynote, and it's exactly what Michael Broom set out when he started, that it was about, the primary purpose is to put you in touch with other people with common interests.